Hi everyone, this is Corrina from Soundiron, and today I will be sharing with you a composition I made using Eko Digit. I heard a lot of vintage retro influences from this keyboard, and so I decided to make something that kind of fell in line with that. So let's take a listen first, and then I'll break it down by each part. So when I was first trying to figure out what I wanted to do with this composition, I was just playing around with some Ableton bass plugins, and I came up with a small bass line, and I was like, oh, this could be a good foundation. And from there, I kind of built the rest of the composition using Eko Digit. This kind of composition kind of falls in the category of something that one might do using a loop pedal, where you layer one track on top of another slowly to build the atmosphere. And so in this case, I started with the bass, and I also start with the kick, and then slowly first introduce the snare. The bass, kick, and snare weren't from Eko Digit, but starting from the ones that are from the instrument, I first layered the initial bass line with Sonar Bzz, wanting it to give it a little bit more electrified version so that it sounds kind of fitting for a video game as usual. So this is what that sounds like. So that layers the bass line, and then my hi-hats are actually using Drummy MW and also glitch hits, which are kind of similar, but one is kind of an electrified version of the other. And so I layered the two of them, panning them far left and far right, and sort of auto shifting them back and forth so that they kind of play with each other and phase in and out of each other to create movement. So this is what that sounds like. Since the hits actually raise just ever so slightly in pitch up and down depending on where you press the keys, I decided to map the MIDI to be aligned with the chord progression so that it moves upward and downward in pitch ever so slightly with the chord progression. And moving on to the chord progression, I used Lo-Fi Keys, which is a warmified version of preset 6 sustains, and this is what that sounds like. I thought that it would be nice to have something that was more sustaining to push those more like staccato notes forward. And then to top it off with a melody, I used Nebula. I went as high as I possibly could on the keyboard, just kind of to create a shimmery sort of melody. And this is what that sounds like. And in addition, I added some processing. I colored it a little bit with retro color, using kind of a VHS-ish kind of preset that I've made before. I also threw on a vocal doubler. It was a free plugin that I picked up at one point and I thought it sounded cool with it. And then I threw on a diffuser called Soft Clouds. This is an NI plugin called Replica. I really like it. It has a lot of really inspiring presets on here. So, but I kind of wanted to make it there's like an airy substance, just because this composition had kind of a lack of higher frequencies. Everything was pretty like deep and like low frequency, and so I wanted to give it some air. So with Replica, I actually automated the feedback because I wanted to give a feeling of the diffusion washing over the entire production and then slowly fading away. And so this is what that sounds like. I not only automated Replica, but I also put on an auto filter and automated this guy down as well, so that we would cut off the harsh as it disappeared. So it feels like it's fading away even farther. Next, in this first section, I used Finish Line, gives it that like extra retro feeling. I used it to make a counter melody to Nebula, playing off of one another and also creating a little bit more movement in the line the second time around. So this is what that sounds like by itself. I intentionally would move the notes so that when there was a sustain in Nebula, it was moving. Then it would just peak out a little bit and continue to push the energy level forward as we wait for the next downbeat. And then, after a few bars, a few phrases of something that feels more rhythmic and staccato, I wanted to wash out the rest of the composition with something more ambient. And so I layered Windy Vox with Elderflower to create some sort of harmonic coloring as the bass line continued to play, just to give it a little bit of a different feeling. I cut out the snare so that it felt more like you're in the air and you're kind of just floating. And so this is what Elderflower sounds like. And this is what Windy Vox sounds like. I also panned them a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right so that they don't fully clash with each other all the time. And lastly, I wanted to make sure the kick drum wasn't covered by the instruments, especially since there's such a broad spectrum of different timbres. And so with most of these tracks, you'll notice that I put a compressor on there and I would sidechain the kick into each instrument. And so that every time the kick actually plays, that instrument will duck a little bit. And so that's probably why you heard a little bit of a divot in the pads. It's because whenever the kick would hit, the pad would duck a little bit and then come back, and then duck a little bit and then come back, just to create space for the lower frequencies. So that's pretty much it. I hope you were able to learn a little bit through this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.